The problem is that too many of us keep waiting for more money, more help, more time, more confidence before we move. And because we keep waiting, we never start. Today, we're going to break that cycle. We're going to solve the problem of hesitation and doubt by showing you that when you use what you have, God will do the rest. Every great story begins with something small, something that looks ordinary, something that doesn't seem to have much value until it is placed in motion. When we look at our lives, we often discredit what we already have because it doesn't look like the grand picture we've been dreaming of. We imagine that success requires massive resources, big networks, or extraordinary talents. Yet the truth is everything you need to begin is already within your reach. The question is not whether you have enough, but whether you are willing to use what you already possess. Too many of us are waiting for the perfect condition before we start, not realizing that perfection will never come. The most powerful breakthroughs in life do not begin with abundance, they begin with a seed. And that seed is already in your hand. Think about it. Every invention, every movement, every global business, every revolutionary idea started with a thought in someone's mind and a small step with the resources they had at the moment. The great mistake people make is assuming that what they have is too small to matter. That mentality keeps them frozen, stuck in a cycle of waiting while opportunities pass by. The truth is, it is not the size of what you have, but the way you perceive it that determines whether it will grow. If you despise your little beginning, you'll never take the steps required to transform it. But if you honor it, nurture it, and put it to work, you will discover that it contains more power than you ever imagined. Life is filled with stories that teach us this principle. A farmer begins with a handful of seeds, not with a harvest. A writer begins with one word, not a completed book. A musician begins with a single note, not a symphony. Yet when they use what they have, that small beginning multiplies into something far greater than they could have seen at the start. This same principle applies to you. The gifts you carry, the experiences you've lived through, the skills you've learned, the opportunities you have at this very moment, these are not accidents. They are tools placed in your hand, waiting for you to put them into motion. The challenge, however, is that most people underestimate their seed. They compare themselves to others who are further ahead and conclude that what they hold is worthless. But you must understand, you are not meant to start where others are now. You are meant to start with what you have, where you are, and trust that growth will follow. The problem with comparison is that it blinds you to your own potential. You end up envying what others have instead of valuing what you've been given. And until you value what is already in your hand, you will never unlock what it has the power to become. There is also a truth about timing here. Many people delay their purpose because they are waiting for more resources, more clarity, or more assurance. But waiting for perfect conditions is the enemy of progress. Conditions will never be perfect because progress itself is what creates new conditions. When you begin to move with what you already possess, you position yourself for opportunities and growth that would have never come otherwise. Starting small is not a disadvantage. It is the training ground for greatness. The little you have right now is not just enough to begin. It is the very foundation on which everything else will be built. Your seed may not look impressive to others. It may not make headlines. It may not attract applause. But hidden within it is the potential to change your life and the lives of those around you. Think of a tiny mustard seed. It's almost invisible, yet it grows into a tree large enough to provide shelter and shade That's how your gift works. What seems insignificant to you has the power to impact generations if you have the courage to start. What you hold in your hand may be as simple as a skill you've overlooked, a relationship you've taken for granted, an idea you've written down in a notebook, or a resource that seems too small to matter. But when you recognize it as your starting point and take the bold step of putting it to use, you activate a principle of growth that cannot be stopped. Progress does not come to those who wait for the perfect moment. Progress comes to those who begin with what they have and trust the process. The truth is, the world does not need you to bring perfection. It needs you to bring your seed. It needs you to show up with your small gift, your small effort, your small beginning. Because when you do, it creates a ripple effect. Others are inspired, doors open, and momentum builds. Nothing is wasted when you use what you have. Every step, no matter how small, compounds into greater results. So the question you must ask yourself is this: what is in my hand right now? What skill, what resource, what opportunity, what relationship, what gift have I been overlooking? Because the key to your breakthrough is not waiting for something new to arrive, but recognizing the value of what has already been entrusted to you. When you stop despising your small beginning and start honoring it, you'll see that it has more potential than you imagined. There is a universal principle that governs growth and increase. Nothing multiplies until it is released. A seed in your hand will remain just a seed, but the moment you put it in the ground, it begins to unlock the life that was hidden within it. The same principle applies to your gifts, your talents, your resources, your time, and even your faith. As long as you hold them tightly, afraid to let go, afraid to take a risk, afraid to use what you have, they remain in the same state. But the moment you release them, when you take that step of action, when you put them into motion, that is when multiplication begins. One of the greatest obstacles people face is the fear of losing what little they already possess. They look at their resources and say, this is all I have. If I use it, I'll run out. That mindset keeps many people stuck in lack. They cling to the little instead of releasing it, not realizing that their refusal to release is the very thing preventing increase. Nothing grows until it is sown. The farmer who keeps his seed in a bag may feel secure because he hasn't lost anything, but at harvest time he will have nothing to reap. The farmer who takes the risk of planting, who lets go of the seed, will enjoy a harvest that far exceeds what he released. That is the power of release. God never multiplies what you hold back. He multiplies what you surrender. When you release your talent to serve others, it grows. When you release your time to invest in something meaningful, you gain more value than you gave. When you release your resources, no matter how little they seem, you set yourself up for a return far, far beyond what you imagined. The principle is simply increase is always connected to action, and multiplication is always tied to obedience. It is not enough to pray for more. You must be willing to use what you already have. Look closely at life, and you will see this truth in motion. The writer who shares their words with the world discovers that their gift multiplies into influence and impact. The teacher who gives away knowledge sees it multiply in the minds and lives of students. The entrepreneur who risks their small savings to start a business often finds that what they released grows into something far greater. The musician who dares to share their song, even when they feel it isn't perfect, sees it multiply into encouragement for thousands. The common thread in all of these stories is this: multiplication is impossible without release. The tragedy is that many people pray, for multiplication without ever planting anything. They want results without action, harvest without sowing, growth without risk. But the laws of life do not work that way. Even in the spiritual dimension, increase is connected to what you do with what you have. God does not bless potential, He blesses action. He does not multiply ideas that remain in your mind. He multiplies ideas that are acted upon. He does not expand gifts that are buried in fear. He expands gifts that are placed into service. What you hold back dies with you, but what you release lives beyond you. This principle also demands trust. To release what you have requires faith, because you are letting go of certainty in exchange for possibility. That can feel uncomfortable, even risky. But you must understand that keeping your gift locked away does not protect you. It limits you. When you step out and release it, you are not just risking loss, you are opening yourself up to increase. Faith is not simply believing in your mind. Faith is shown in what you are willing to act upon. If you believe that what you have carries potential, then your proof of faith is in your willingness to use it. Multiplication also teaches us something about God's nature. He delights in taking something small and turning it into something significant, but He always requires human participation. He does not multiply nothing, He multiplies something. He does not create harvest without seed. He does not give growth where there is no effort. This is why your release matters. When you release what you have, you are giving heaven something to work with. You are showing that you trust God enough to use the little in your hand, believing that He can turn it into more. Many people disqualify themselves because they think their offering is too small. They say, "What difference will it make if I start now? What difference will it make if I give this little? What difference will it make if I share my small gift?" But what looks insignificant to you may be the very thing that unlocks a chain of blessings you cannot imagine. It is not the size of what you release that matters. It is the act of releasing it. The small can become great once it is put into motion. Just like a tiny spark can light a fire, a small action can set in motion a great transformation. So the real challenge is not whether you have enough to start. The real challenge is whether you have the courage to release what you already possess. It is not about waiting for more resources, more certainty, or more applause. It is about trusting that what you have is enough for God to use and multiply. Once you release it, you set into motion a principle that cannot be stopped. What you give, what you use, what you act upon will return to you in greater measure. Your future increase is hidden in your present release. One of the greatest misunderstandings people carry about themselves is the belief that their limitations disqualify them from greatness. They look at what they cannot do, at what they lack, at the weaknesses that seem so evident, and they conclude that they are not enough. But what if the very thing you see as your greatest limitation is actually the perfect stage for divine power to be revealed? What if the areas where you feel inadequate are the very places where God intends to show Himself strong? What you call a weakness is not a reason to quit. It is an opportunity for something greater than you to take over. Think for a moment about the way we view strength in this world. We are taught to celebrate power, skill, and talent. We admire the people who seem flawless, who appear to have all the resources, all the connections, all the ability. But if you look at the greatest breakthroughs in history, you will notice a pattern. They rarely come from the people who had everything. More often, they come from those who were lacking, overlooked, underestimated, or even counted out. Why? Because when human strength ends, divine strength begins. The space where you feel weak is the exact space where God demonstrates His sufficiency. Your limitation is not a dead end. It is a signal that you were never meant to do everything in your own power. Too many people waste their lives trying to cover up their weaknesses, trying to appear stronger than they really are, trying to prove to others that they have no flaws. But the truth is, your flaws are not your enemy. Your struggles are not disqualifiers. Your lack is not the end of your story. In fact, the areas where you admit, "I can't," are the very areas where you will see God say, "I can." There is a principle woven into the fabric of life. Dependence unlocks strength. When you acknowledge your limitation, you open the door for help beyond yourself. This is why people who think they have everything rarely grow. They depend only on themselves, and their progress stops at the limit of their own ability. But when you admit your weakness, when you acknowledge your limitation, you invite a strength greater than your own to enter the picture. That is why your limitation is not a curse but an opportunity. It shifts the focus away from what you can't do and onto what God can do through you. Consider this: if you had no limitations, you would have no need for faith. If you could solve everything on your own, there would be no room for trust, no space for miracles, no opportunity for divine intervention. It is your limitation that creates the gap where faith is activated. Faith does not grow in environments of certainty and abundance. Faith grows in the soil of limitation and lack. When you reach the end of yourself and still choose to believe, still choose to act, still choose to trust, that is when you see the impossible become possible. Your weakness is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It teaches you humility. It reminds you that you are not the source of everything. It trains you to depend on something higher, something greater, something beyond what you can see. Weakness grounds you so that you do not become arrogant in success. Weakness reminds you that life is not meant to be lived by your own effort alone. And paradoxically, it is often the very weakness you despise that becomes the channel for your greatest testimony. Think about people who have done extraordinary things against all odds. The child who grew up in poverty yet built a life of abundance. The individual who was told they would never succeed yet went on to create something that impacted millions. The person who carried physical or mental limitations yet became a voice of hope to others. In every one of these stories, the limitation was real, but it was not final. It became the stage on which greatness was revealed, not because they were strong, but because they chose to believe that their limitation was not the end. This is why you must never despise your limitations. Do not allow them to convince you that you are less. Do not allow them to silence your potential or keep you frozen in fear. Instead, look at them as the very areas where God wants to reveal something greater. When you admit, "I can't do this on my own," you are finally in the right posture to see what can happen when divine power steps in. That is why the greatest victories are often born out of the deepest struggles. That is why some of the most impactful people are those who first had to wrestle with their own lack. Their weakness became the soil where strength was born. The truth is, if you only focus on your abilities, you will limit yourself to human capacity. But if you are willing to embrace your limitations and trust that they are opportunities for God to reveal His power, you step into a realm where the impossible becomes possible. Your story will not be defined by what you lacked, but by how those very limitations became the platform for something greater. The question is not whether you have weaknesses. The question is whether you will allow those weaknesses to paralyze you or propel you into trust. Faith is one of the most misunderstood concepts in life. Many people think faith is simply a matter of belief, an internal conviction that something will happen someday. But true faith is never passive. It is active. Faith is not proven by what you think or even what you feel. It is proven by what you are willing to do. Faith without action is nothing more than wishful thinking. It becomes alive only when you move, only when you step out, only when you put into motion what you claim to believe. And when you act on that belief, something powerful happens. Provision is unlocked. There is a direct connection between movement and miracles. You cannot sit still, do nothing, and expect doors to open. Faith is not waiting on the sidelines, hoping for something to change. Faith is stepping onto the field and daring to take the first move. Too many people are asking for breakthrough while refusing to act. They pray for provision, but never start with the little they already have. They ask for opportunities, but never prepare themselves for when the door opens. They wait for perfect conditions before moving, not realizing that movement itself creates the conditions for success. Provision rarely arrives in advance. It is released in response to your action. When you begin to act on your faith, you change the atmosphere around you. Your steps of obedience signal to heaven that you are ready for increase. Imagine a person standing at the edge of a river, asking for a bridge to appear. The bridge will not come while they stand still on the shore. It is only when they take the step into the water that the way begins to open. That is the nature of faith. It demands that you move even when you cannot see the full picture. It requires that you start walking even if you do not yet see the road ahead. And in that movement, provision is unlocked. This is why faith and fear are complete opposites. Fear waits for assurance before acting. Faith acts in spite of uncertainty. Fear says, "What if I fail?" Faith says, "Even if I don't see the outcome yet, I believe there will be a way." Fear paralyzes, but faith mobilizes, and provision does not flow to those who sit paralyzed in fear. It flows to those who step out in faith. The very act of moving forward with what little you have is the key that opens the door to what you need. You see, God never does for you what you can do for yourself. He never finishes what you refuse to start. He never multiplies what you leave unused. This is why action is so critical. It is not that your action accomplishes everything. It doesn't. But your action creates the space for divine provision to meet you. You bring the step, God brings the way. You bring the seed, He brings the harvest. You bring the obedience, He brings the increase. The provision was always waiting, but it is your faith in action that unlocks it. Think about the countless opportunities people miss because they are waiting for certainty. They want to see the entire staircase before taking the first step. But provision is not revealed that way. Often it is revealed one step at a time. Each act of faith opens the door for the next act of provision. If you refuse to move, you remain blind to what could have been yours. But if you take the step, you begin to see doors open that were invisible before. Your obedience unlocks opportunities you would never have encountered otherwise. This is also why preparation is an act of faith. When you prepare for what you do not yet see, you are declaring with your actions that you believe it will come. The student who studies before the exam, the entrepreneur who saves before the opportunity, the dreamer who plans before the platform, these are acts of faith. And because they act, provision comes. Faith is not about passively waiting for things to happen. It is about aligning your actions with what you believe will happen. You may not have everything you need right now, but you have enough to start. That small beginning is not insignificant. It is the seed that, when acted upon, will attract the resources, people, and opportunities you need. Action always precedes multiplication. The more you move, the more provision flows. But as long as you hesitate, as long as you hold back, as long as you wait for a guarantee, you block what could have been released in your life. Faith in action also shifts your mindset. It forces you to think creatively, to see opportunities where others see obstacles, to recognize possibilities in places that look barren. When you move, you train yourself to expect provision. You develop eyes to see doors that others overlook. Your very posture changes. You no longer sit idle in doubt. You rise with expectation. And that expectation shapes your reality because provision follows those who move forward in faith. The world has never been changed by those who only believed quietly in their hearts. It has always been changed by those who dared to act on their belief. Faith that stays in your mind makes no difference to your future. Faith that moves your feet changes everything. The people who rise above mediocrity are not those who had the most resources at the beginning, but those who were willing to move with what little they had, trusting that provision would meet them on the journey. From the very beginning, we discovered that everything great starts small, and the power of your destiny is hidden in what you already have. What seems insignificant in your hand is often the very thing that holds the key to your future. The problem is never the size of what you possess, but your willingness to start. When you decide to put that seed into motion, you give it permission to grow into something greater than you imagined. We also learned that multiplication never comes to what you hold back. It comes to what you release. Increase is always connected to movement. The more you sow, the more you reap. The more you use what you have, the more room there is for it to expand. Nothing grows in the grip of fear, but everything multiplies when it is surrendered in faith. Your act of release is the trigger for God's divine increase. Then we looked at the truth that your limitation is not the end of your story, but the beginning of God's opportunity. What you call weakness is often the stage where strength is revealed. The places where you feel incapable are the very places where divine power wants to step in. Your limitation is not a barrier, but an invitation, a chance to experience a level of help and grace you could never access on your own. Finally, we saw that faith without action is lifeless. Belief alone is not enough. It must be proven by movement. Every step you take with what you already have unlocks provision for what you need next. Doors do not open for those who wait forever. They open for those who step forward in trust. Faith is not about waiting for perfect conditions, but about moving with expectation, knowing that as you act, the way will be made clear. So now the choice is before you. Will you keep waiting for more, or will you begin with what you have? Will you let fear of weakness hold you back, or will you see your limitation as the very opportunity for divine strength to be revealed? Will you hold on tightly to your little, or will you release it so it can multiply? Will you sit still in doubt, or will you step forward in faith and unlock the provision waiting for you? Everything you need to step into your destiny has already been placed within your reach. Use what you have and watch God do the rest.